Have you ever worked somewhere so ordinary, so routine, that you almost forget danger exists beyond your cubicle walls? For 3 years I filed reports, balanced spreadsheets, and pretended the numbers added up. My name is Lily Brennan. I'm 24 years old, and I work as a contadora for a mid-sized investment firm in Chicago. Worked. Past tense now, I suppose. It started innocently, the way most disasters do. A misplaced decimal. A transaction that didn't match the client's portfolio. I've always been meticulous, obsessive even. My supervisor used to joke that I could spot an error from across the office. So when the numbers refused to reconcile, I dug deeper. What I found made my blood run cold. Hundreds of transactions, buried in complex routing patterns, all leading back to shell companies. Laundered money. Millions of dollars flowing through our firm like water through cupped hands. And the signature on the approval documents belonged to our senior partner, a man who played golf with senators and donated to children's hospitals. I spent 2 months documenting everything. Late nights at the office, copying files to a pen drive I kept hidden in a hollowed-out book at home. I uploaded backups to a secure cloud service, programmed to send everything to the FBI if I didn't log in for 7 consecutive days. I even left a sealed envelope with my lawyer containing instructions and passwords. Maybe I was paranoid, or maybe some part of me knew what was coming. Vincent Caruso. I didn't know his name then. He was just a notation in the files, a beneficiary behind 6 layers of corporate veils. But he knew mine. December hit Chicago like a fist, temperatures plunging below freezing, snow piling up in dirty gray mountains along the sidewalks. I stayed late on a Tuesday, finishing a report that couldn't wait until morning. The parking garage was nearly empty when I reached my car, my breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. I never saw them coming. A hand clamped over my mouth, chemical sweet and suffocating. Arms like steel bands pinned mine to my sides. I tried to scream, to fight, but the world tilted sideways and went dark. When I woke up, zip ties cut into my wrists. The space around me was industrial, all concrete floors and metal beams. An abandoned warehouse or factory, judging by the rust and the broken windows high above. My head throbbed. Blood had dried on my temple, crusty and tight. 3 days. That's how long they kept me there. The man who questioned me had gray hair and cold gray eyes that matched. A scar cut across his right temple, pale against his weathered skin. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. The 2 men who stood behind him, silent and enormous, communicated all the threat necessary. "Where are the files, Miss Brennan?" His accent was Italian-American, refined. "What did you tell the authorities?" I denied everything at first, claimed I didn't know what he was talking about. He smiled at that, a terrible expression that contained no warmth whatsoever. Then he showed me photos of my apartment, turned inside out. Furniture slashed open, floorboards pried up. We found the pen drive. Very clever, hiding it inside that cookbook you never use. But there are other copies, aren't there? Cloud storage, email accounts. Tell me how to access them. My hands shook. I gave him the cloud service name, but I lied about the password. Invented something plausible. He wrote it down carefully, then nodded to one of his men. "We'll verify that. If you're lying, Miss Brennan, you'll regret wasting my time." I didn't sleep those 3 days. They kept a harsh light burning constantly, footsteps echoing at random intervals. I sat on the cold concrete, zip ties replaced by rope that burned my wrists raw. Fear became something physical, a living creature coiled in my stomach. On the morning of the 4th day, Vincent returned. His expression told me everything I needed to know. "Wrong password. I'm disappointed." He turned to his men. "We're done here. Take her to the site. Make it clean." The site. Execution. The word they didn't need to say. They hauled me to my feet, muscles screaming in protest. My legs barely supported my weight. They loaded me into a van, windowless and cold. I sat on the metal floor, hands bound behind me. 2 silent men watching me with the indifference of butchers eyeing livestock. The drive seemed endless. We were headed somewhere remote, somewhere bodies wouldn't be found. I tried to memorize turns, count minutes, anything to maintain some semblance of control. But terror makes time elastic. Minutes stretched into hours, hours compressed into heartbeats. Then the van lurched violently. An explosion of sound, metal shrieking, glass shattering. We'd been hit, hard. The vehicle skidded sideways, throwing me against the wall. Gunfire erupted outside, sharp cracks that multiplied into a continuous roar. My guards shouted into radios, scrambling for weapons. One threw open the rear doors and leapt out, returning fire at unseen attackers. In the chaos, with both men focused outward, I saw my chance. My only chance. I threw myself through the open doors, hit the pavement hard, and ran. The zip ties they'd replaced the ropes with cut deep into my wrists. But my legs were free. I sprinted down the industrial road, away from the gunfire, into the maze of warehouses and storage facilities. Snow was falling again, thick and fast. I wasn't dressed for winter, just the same thin blouse and slacks I'd worn to work 4 days ago. My heels twisted on the icy pavement. I kicked them off, kept running. The cold bit through my clothes immediately, but adrenaline kept me moving. Behind me, the gunfire faded. I didn't know if they were following, didn't dare look back. I hid between shipping containers for what felt like hours, teeth chattering so hard I thought they'd shatter. When silence finally settled, heavy and complete, I stumbled forward again. Had to keep moving. Had to find help, or shelter, or something. The industrial district stretched endlessly, building after identical building. My bare feet left bloody prints in the snow. The cut on my forehead had reopened, blood running into my left eye, hot against my frozen skin. I don't remember making the decision to collapse. My body simply stopped obeying commands. One moment I was walking. The next I was on my knees in an alley between 2 massive warehouses. Snow piled around me. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. Couldn't feel much of anything except a distant, detached awareness that this was how it ended. Not murdered in some remote location, but frozen in a Chicago alley. Alone and forgotten. Tears came then. Hot and bitter. I'd fought so hard. Done everything right. Tried to be brave. Tried to expose corruption. And for what? To die anyway. Just slower and colder. I curled into myself. Snow settling on my shoulders like a burial shroud. Somewhere nearby an engine purred. Rich and powerful. Moving slowly. I couldn't lift my head. Couldn't call out. A car door opened. Footsteps crunched through snow. Measured and deliberate. Then a presence loomed over me. Vast and dark. A man's voice, deep and accented with something Eastern European, spoke a single word in a language I didn't understand. Strong hands lifted me with startling gentleness. I tried to focus on his face but could only make out dark hair, sharp features, eyes that caught the dim light like a predator's. He carried me as though I weighed nothing, and despite everything, despite the rational terror I should have felt, my body went limp in his arms. "You're safe now," he murmured. And it should have been a lie. Men who found bleeding women in alleys weren't saviors, but his voice held a certainty that bypassed logic entirely. I tried to speak, to warn him about Vincent, about the danger, but darkness pulled at me again. Warm and soft compared to the killing cold. The last thing I heard was his voice, giving orders in clipped tones. Then nothing. Consciousness returned in fragments. Softness beneath me, not concrete. Warmth, not killing cold. The faint beep of medical equipment. I tried to open my eyes, but my lids felt weighted with lead. Voices drifted nearby, speaking in low tones. A man, professional and measured. The hypothermia was severe, but she'll recover. The lacerations are superficial. I've treated the head wound. She needs rest, fluids, and monitoring for the next 48 hours. Another voice responded, this one female and sharp as cut glass. And the zip tie marks on her wrists? Consistent with prolonged restraint. Several days, I'd estimate. A pause. Whoever had her wasn't gentle. Understood. Keep me informed of any changes. Footsteps receded. A door closed with a soft click. I forced my eyes open, blinking against even the dim light. The ceiling above me was coffered, painted a warm cream. Definitely not a hospital. The bed I occupied was massive, dressed in linen so soft they felt liquid against my skin. An IV drip fed into my left arm. Through tall windows, I could see snow-covered grounds and dense forest beyond. A woman sat in a chair near the door, watching me with eyes the color of glacial ice. She was striking, all sharp cheekbones and platinum blonde hair cut in a severe bob. She wore black tactical pants and a fitted sweater, and something about the way she held herself screamed military training. When she saw I was awake, she stood with fluid grace. "You're up. Good. How do you feel?" My throat was sandpaper. "Where am I?" "Safe. That's all you need to know for now." She poured water from a crystal pitcher into a glass, held it to my lips. I drank greedily, the cool liquid almost painful going down. "My name is Nadia Volkov. I work for the man who brought you here. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days. The number seemed impossible. I need to leave. There are people looking for me. Dangerous people. If they find me here, they won't." Nadia's tone allowed no argument. She set the glass down, crossed her arms. "You're under protection now. But that protection comes with conditions. You don't leave this room without permission. You don't contact anyone outside. You answer questions truthfully. Clear? Protection." The word felt foreign. "Who are you people?" "That's a conversation for later, when you're stronger." She moved toward the door, then paused. "If you need anything, press the call button on the nightstand. Someone will come. Food will be brought shortly. The bathroom is through that door. Clean clothes are in the closet. Don't try to leave." She exited before I could respond, and I heard the distinct sound of a lock engaging. Locked in. Protected or imprisoned? Maybe both. I lay back against the pillows, mind racing. Everything hurt in that distant way of healing injuries. Pain muted by whatever medication they'd given me. But I was alive. Warm. Clean, I realized. Someone had bathed me while I was unconscious. Dressed me in soft cotton pajamas. The thought should have been violating. But I was too exhausted to care. Later, after managing to use the bathroom without collapsing, after forcing down half a bowl of soup brought by a silent staff member, I explored my prison. The room was easily 400 square feet. The closet held clothes in my size, simple but expensive. Wool sweaters in deep burgundy and charcoal gray, tailored pants, soft leggings. No blues, I noticed absently. The bathroom was marble and chrome, stocked with luxury products. Through the windows, I could see manicured grounds, high walls in the distance, and armed men patrolling in pairs. Night fell early in December. I watched darkness swallow the forest, lights clicking on along the perimeter walls. I dozed fitfully when the lock clicked again. I sat up sharply, heart hammering. The man who entered made the large room feel suddenly smaller. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with broad shoulders filling out a black suit that probably cost more than my car. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from granite. Sharp jaw, straight nose, lips pressed into a firm line. But it was his eyes that caught me. Dark brown, almost black, and utterly penetrating. They swept over me with an intensity that felt physical. "Miss Brennan." His accent was Russian, heavy but controlled. "I'm glad to see you've recovered. My name is Raphael Sokolov." The name hit me like a physical blow. Sokolov, one of the biggest organized crime families in the country. The man standing in my room was a monster wearing an expensive suit. I pressed back against the headboard, pulse skyrocketing. "What do you want from me?" He pulled the chair Nadia had occupied closer to the bed, sat with casual authority. "I want information. Who tried to kill you? Why were you running through my territory in the middle of a snowstorm?" "Your territory?" "The industrial district where I found you. It belongs to me." He leaned back, studying me like I was a puzzle requiring careful solving. "You're educated, well-groomed, despite your condition. Those aren't the hands of someone who works manual labor. So what were you doing there, freezing to death in an alley?" I hesitated. Every survival instinct I possessed screamed danger. But what choice did I have? "I'm an accountant. Was an accountant. I worked for an investment firm. I discovered they were laundering money. I documented it. And the people behind it found out. They kidnapped me. held me for 3 days. Were taking me somewhere to kill me when another group attacked the convoy. I escaped during the fight. His expression revealed nothing, but I saw his fingers tap once against the chair's arm. Who ordered your abduction? A man named Vincent Caruso. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Recognition. Caruso. Interesting. He stood, paced to the window, hands clasped behind his back. You're in a difficult position, Miss Brennan. Caruso is not a forgiving man. He'll hunt you until you're dead, or he is. Then let me go. I'll disappear. Change my name. Leave the state. You don't need this trouble. He turned back to me, and for the first time, something that might have been amusement touched his face. Let you go. As if I'm your captor. Aren't you? The locked door suggests otherwise. The locked door keeps you safe. Caruso has informants everywhere. If word spreads that you're here, he'll come for you. The lock protects you as much as it contains you. Raphael moved closer, and I refused to shrink back this time. I'll be honest with you, Miss Brennan. Caruso and I are not friends. We've been circling each other for years, competing for territory, influence, profit. You represent an opportunity, leverage against a rival. So I'm a hostage. You're a guest who can't leave. Semantics perhaps, but important ones. He headed for the door, then paused. Rest. Eat. Recover your strength. We'll speak again tomorrow. Why did you stop? In that alley. Why didn't you just drive past? He looked back at me, and for a moment, his carefully controlled mask slipped. What I saw beneath was complicated. Dark, but not entirely cold. I saw someone dying. I chose not to let it happen. That's all. The door closed behind him. The lock engaged. I sat in the opulent room, sheets worth more than my monthly rent, and tried to process everything. Raphael Sokolov, a mobster, a criminal, and the only thing standing between me and Vincent Caruso's bullet. Days blurred together. A week passed, marked only by meals delivered at regular intervals, and Nadia's brief visits to check on my recovery. The doctor returned once, declared me healed, and left without meeting my eyes. I read books from a small shelf in the corner, watched snow fall beyond the windows, and tried not to think about my apartment, my job, my life dissolving like salt in water. Raphael visited every night, always after dark, always in those perfectly tailored suits. Sometimes he asked questions about Vincent, about the laundering operation, about what I'd documented. Other times he simply sat, asking about my life before. I told him about the orphanage, about losing my parents when I was 8 to a drunk driver, about aging out of the system at 18 with nothing but a partial scholarship and a determination to never be helpless again. He listened without interrupting, without offering empty platitudes. Just listened with that unsettling focus. He never talked about himself, never lowered his guard, but I learned things anyway. The way his jaw tightened when I mentioned injustice, the slight softening around his eyes when I described studying accounting in a library because my dorm was too noisy. He was lonely, I realized, surrounded by people but utterly isolated. 2.5 weeks into my captivity, something in me snapped. He arrived for his nightly visit, and I didn't wait for questions. How long are you keeping me here? As long as necessary. That's not an answer. Days? Weeks? Years? I stood, facing him across the small space. You said I'm not a hostage, but I can't leave. You said I'm safe, but I'm locked in a room. What am I, Raphael? He stood as well, and the room shrank around us. You're a complication. Vincent is searching for you, actively. He's offered substantial rewards for information, applied pressure to neutral parties. I've let it be known through back channels that I might possess something of value to him. Not confirmed, just implied. He can't attack without knowing for certain, so he's forced to negotiate. You're using me as bait. I'm using your existence as leverage in territorial disputes that predate you by decades. It's business. I'm not business. I'm a person who's done nothing wrong except try to do the right thing. The right thing. He laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. The right thing gets people killed, Miss Brennan. You should know that better than anyone. So what? I should have ignored the corruption? Let them continue breaking the law? You should have been smart enough to realize you couldn't fight them alone. He stepped closer, anger cracking through his control. You played hero with no backup, no plan, no understanding of the forces you were challenging. And now you're trapped in a situation far worse than ignorance would have left you. At least I tried. At least I stood for something. What do you stand for? The words came out sharper than I intended. Are you any different from Vincent? You keep me locked up, use me as leverage. You're a criminal. How are you better? Silence stretched between us, taut and dangerous. Raphael's eyes had gone cold, flat. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Deadly soft. I'm not better. I never claimed to be. But I'm keeping you alive. And that's more than Vincent would do. Remember that, when you're judging me from your moral high ground. He left. The lock engaged with more force than usual. I stood in the empty room, heart racing, and wondered if I'd just made a terrible mistake. But I couldn't regret the words. Couldn't pretend this was anything other than what it was. A cage might be gilded, but it was still a cage. And I was still a prisoner, no matter what euphemisms we used. 3 weeks after Raphael pulled me from that alley, the mansion exploded into chaos. I woke to the sound of gunfire. Sharp cracks that shattered the pre-dawn quiet. Instinct threw me from the bed before conscious thought caught up. More gunfire. Closer now. Shouting in Russian. An explosion rocked the building, rattling the windows in their frames. The lights went out. I scrambled for the door, knowing it would be locked, but trying anyway. My hands shook against the wood. Another explosion, this one close enough that I felt the percussion in my chest. Smoke began seeping under the door, acrid and choking. Terror clawed up my throat. I was trapped. 3 weeks of captivity, of careful survival, and I was going to burn to death in a locked room. The door burst open. Raphael filled the doorway, backlit by flames spreading down the corridor. His suit jacket was gone, shirt torn at the shoulder, a streak of blood across his jaw. In his right hand, he held a gun, matte black and deadly. Move. Now. I didn't hesitate. He grabbed my wrist, pulled me into the smoke-filled hallway. We ran past rooms I'd never seen. Luxury dissolving into chaos. A guard lay motionless near the stairs, eyes staring at nothing. Raphael didn't slow. We descended into the entrance hall where Nadia coordinated a defensive retreat, shouting orders into a radio while firing through a shattered window. East Wing is lost, she called to Raphael. They came through the perimeter with shaped charges. Professional. Vincent's not playing games anymore. How many? At least 20. Maybe more in reserve. She reloaded with practiced efficiency. Didn't even look at me. We need to evacuate. The cars are ready in the garage. Raphael nodded, started pulling me toward a side corridor. Then a window imploded inward, glass fragmenting into 1,000 deadly shards. I didn't think. I shoved Raphael sideways. The explosion that followed was deafening, a wall of force that lifted me off my feet and slammed me into the marble floor. My ears rang. Smoke and dust choked the air. Strong hands hauled me upright. Raphael's face was inches from mine, shouting something I couldn't hear through the ringing in my skull. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye, but alive. We were both alive. He practically carried me to the garage where 3 black SUVs waited, engines running. Nadia appeared from another corridor, supporting an injured guard. They're breaching the west entrance. We're out of time. Raphael shoved me into the middle vehicle, slid in beside me. Nadia took the front passenger seat. The driver accelerated before the door fully closed, tires screaming on polished concrete. We exploded out of the garage into gray dawn light. Gunfire chased us, bullets sparking off armored plating. The convoy of 3 vehicles roared down the winding drive, past burning outbuildings and bodies I tried not to see. We hit the main road at dangerous speed, sliding on ice before the tires found purchase. I pressed against the seat, breathing hard, adrenaline making my hands shake. Raphael had his phone out, speaking rapid Russian to someone. He was bleeding from multiple cuts, his white shirt torn and filthy. But his hands were steady, his voice controlled. This wasn't his first firefight. "Where are we going?" I managed, my voice hoarse from smoke. Nadia answered without turning around. Safe house. Indiana. 2 hours if we're not followed. 2 hours. I watched Chicago disappear in the rearview mirror, replaced by highways and gradually thickening forest. Raphael ended his call, finally looked at me. His gaze swept over me, cataloging injuries. You're hurt. I'm fine. There's blood on your arm. I looked down. He was right. My pajama sleeve was torn, a nasty gash leaking red from where I'd hit the floor. I hadn't even felt it. It's nothing. You're bleeding too. He ignored that, pulled a first aid kit from under the seat. Without asking permission, he pushed up my sleeve, examined the wound with clinical detachment. It needs cleaning and sutures. Add it to the list. I tried for humor, but it came out shaky. Delayed shock was setting in, my whole body beginning to tremble. Raphael noticed. Of course he did. He shrugged out of his ruined shirt, leaving only a black undershirt, and draped the fabric around my shoulders. It was warm from his body heat, smelled like smoke, and something distinctly him, pine and gunpowder. Thank you, I whispered, for coming back for me. You could have left me locked in that room. His eyes found mine, dark and unreadable. No, I couldn't have. The safe house wasn't what I expected. Not another mansion, but a modern structure of glass and wood, built into a hillside, surrounded by dense Indiana forest. It looked like something from an architectural magazine. All clean lines and natural materials, beautiful and isolated. The convoy pulled into an underground garage, and we emerged into a space that smelled like cedar and new construction. Raphael gave orders in clipped tones. Guards dispersed to establish a perimeter. Nadia disappeared into a room full of monitors and communications equipment. The injured were taken to a medical suite, and Raphael turned to me, some of the battle hardness leaving his expression. You should rest. There are bedrooms upstairs. I'm not tired. A lie. Exhaustion pulled at me like undertow. But sleep felt impossible with adrenaline still singing through my veins. Then come with me. He led me through the house to a great room dominated by windows overlooking the forest. Dawn was breaking properly now, pale light filtering through bare branches. He moved to a bar, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, held one out to me. I don't drink whiskey. You do today. He was right. I took the glass, sipped. It burned going down, but settled the shaking in my hands. Raphael downed his in one swallow, poured another. We stood in silence, watching the forest lighten. Finally, he spoke. Vincent knows you're with me now. The attack confirms it. He was willing to risk open war to get to you. I'm sorry. This is my fault. No. His voice was sharp. This is Vincent's fault for being a paranoid bastard who'd rather burn everything than lose leverage. And it's my fault for underestimating how far he'd go. What happens now? Now we wait. Nadia is coordinating with our allies, reinforcing defenses. Vincent showed his hand. He can't sustain a prolonged war without losing support from the other families. He'll pull back, regroup. Raphael set his glass down, turned to face me fully. But he won't stop. Not until you're dead, or he is. The casual way he said it made my stomach twist. You should give me to him. End this before more people die. Is that what you want? I want people to stop dying because of me. That's not what I asked. He stepped closer, and the room shrank around us. Do you want me to hand you over to Vincent? To let him put a bullet in your head and dump your body somewhere your family will never find it? You, who spent your whole life fighting to matter, to make a difference. Is that the end you want? I don't have family. Everyone has someone. Everyone matters to somebody. Do they? The question came out bitter. I grew up in state care, aged out at 18. The friends I made in college drifted away after graduation. I worked alone, lived alone. When Vincent took me, nobody noticed for 4 days. Nobody reported me missing. Nobody cared. Something flickered in Raphael's expression. Not pity. Something harder. Understanding. I watched my mother and sister die when I was 23, shot in our home by men my father had crossed. I found them bleeding out on marble floors, and I couldn't save them. My father lasted 3 more hours. Long enough to make me promise I'd take over, that I'd never show weakness, never trust anyone. I've spent 9 years keeping that promise. 9 years surrounded by people and completely alone. He'd never shared anything personal before. The admission hung between us, raw and unexpected. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "Nobody should have to carry that. We all carry something." He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from my face. His fingers were warm against my skin, calloused but gentle. "You asked if I was different from Vincent. I am, but not because I'm good. I'm not. I've done terrible things, Lily. Unforgivable things. But I don't hurt people for pleasure. I don't break them for sport. And I don't abandon the people under my protection. Lily." He'd never used my first name before. Always Miss Brennan, formal and distancing. Hearing it now, in that low voice rough with smoke and exhaustion, did something complicated to my pulse. Why me? Out of everyone you could protect, everyone who might be useful to you. Why stop for a stranger freezing in an alley? I don't know. His hand lingered near my face, not quite touching. I've asked myself that 100 times. You were nobody to me, a problem I didn't need. But I looked at you crying in that snow, broken and alone and still breathing, still fighting, and something in me said, not this one. This one lives. The space between us felt charged, electric. His eyes searched mine, looking for something I wasn't sure I could name. Outside, the forest was fully lit by morning sun. Inside, we stood in the ruins of our respective walls, exposed in ways that had nothing to do with the attack. I'm scared, I admitted. Not of Vincent, or guns, or burning buildings. I'm scared of this, of what I feel when you look at me like that. What do you feel? Like I'm standing on the edge of something I can't see the bottom of. Like one more step and I'll fall and never stop falling. Raphael's hand finally settled against my cheek, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. I'm already falling. Have been since the moment I saw you. He kissed me. Not gently, not tentatively. He kissed me like a man who'd been holding back too long, like he needed it more than air. I kissed him back, fingers tangling in his ruined undershirt, pulling him closer. It was reckless and probably stupid and definitely complicated, but I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt alive. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This is a terrible idea, probably the worst I've ever had. You should stay away from me. I'm dangerous for you. You're a little late with that warning. I pulled back just far enough to meet his eyes. I'm already here, already involved, already falling. So what do we do now? Raphael's answer was another kiss, deeper this time, full of promises neither of us should make. Outside, armed guards patrolled. Somewhere, Vincent planned his next move. The world was burning, dangerous, completely out of control. But in that moment, wrapped in Raphael's arms with morning light streaming through the windows, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. Back at the mansion, the familiar edges of fear and uncertainty pressed in. Sharper for everything I'd just risked and everything I'd realized. The new security measures altered daily rhythms. Undercurrents of tension ran through the house. Armed men replaced the landscaping crew, each doorway monitored by cameras. Nadia's visits, once brisk and sardonic, turned briefer. She'd grown anxious, perpetually listening through earpieces, eyes scanning shadows even inside these walls. Raphael held nightly strategy sessions, remote but never detached. He and Nadia analyzed every detail of Vincent's attack, how they breached, who was lost, which contacts could be trusted. Sometimes I sat quietly at the end of the table, pretending to read while listening. Raphael was calm but relentless. I learned Vincent had gone silent since the assault failed. He's regrouping, Raphael said one night, voice flat as ice. He suspects what you have, Lily. He'll come with twice the force if he learns you're alive. I barely slept. The evening before, Raphael found me by the window, watching snow settle in the courtyard, listening for threats. He stood behind me, voice low. He'll use every weapon at his disposal. That includes information. Your files, if he can alter them. Anything to turn this house into a target for the authorities as well. I turned, searching his face. What's left of the evidence is hidden. My words were more hope than certainty. That changed 2 days later, when everything collapsed again. Nadia stormed into the library, pale and breathless. Encrypted cloud backup has been breached. Confirmation from one of our techs. Vincent's men have the files. They're modifying them, reddening the trails, swapping our names for theirs to incriminate the Sokolovs. The world dropped out from under me. How did they get in? She hesitated. Your lawyer. They went after him, needed what he had. My hands trembled on the arm of the chair. Then they'll make it look like Raphael was the one laundering money and organizing hits. Raphael entered, having heard the last part. He looked at me, composed, always, but too still. He intends to trap us. Use your records as fuel to destroy this house, legally and otherwise. He held out his phone, displaying grainy photos sent from one of his contacts. My lawyer, battered, mouth tight with resolve. Guilt knifed through my chest. Raphael set his phone down hard on the table. We have 2 options. We disappear. New identities, new lives. You'll never see anyone from this house again. Or we move first, reclaim those records, expose the tampering, and force Vincent into the light. My voice was blurry with rising adrenaline. If we run, he wins. He'll ruin lives here. You lose everything you built. But if we fight, he nodded, eyes cold, but alive with something fierce. If we fight, you help me. You know the files. You testify if needed. But it's dangerous. He'll come after you harder than before. Nadia, unpredictably, sided with me. You want your life back? Help us. Let's hit him before he hits us. I breathed in sharply, decision forming in some scarred, stubborn place. We fight. I refuse to vanish again. Preparation took 10 days. Raphael refused to cut corners. Nadia drilled me on escape routes, disguises, even self-defense. She taught me to keep my phone in a bag laced with foil. Avoid entering buildings first. The mansion became a maze of locked doors, regular code changes, and backup plans. We retraced my memory of the old records. What I'd stored. What Vincent would want to alter. Which digital fingerprints he'd miss. Raphael's hackers combed the dark web for chatter, tracking traces of data movement back to a rented server bank in suburban Cicero. Adrenaline was a near constant. The plan was simple, but execution would be anything but. Nadia and Raphael's best would breach Vincent's data vault while I kept Vincent occupied in a public setting, pretending to negotiate for my safety in exchange for passwords to the last backup, what he thought was the missing piece to erase all evidence against him. You'll have to be convinced, Raphael warned. You can't let him see you're working for me. I practiced the story for hours, rehearsed fear until it felt almost real. Raphael watched me, correcting my tone, teaching me what Vincent would look for. Show him desperation, not defiance. Those sessions blurred the boundaries between training and exposure, proximity electric and troubling. Each mistake an excuse for him to draw closer. Hands guiding mine through the pantomime of tension. One night, after an argument about protocol, when I wanted a gun, when he refused, I lost my patience. You keep telling me it's dangerous, but it's always dangerous around you. You want me to act brave? Then stop treating me like I'll shatter. He crossed the room in 2 strides, jaw set. I'd give you everything if I could trust you wouldn't try to save everyone else at your own expense. For the first time, he sounded hurt. You think I asked for you to stand with me in this, Lily? I was halfway to giving you up, sending you away. But when you said you would fight, I realized I'd never let you go. Even if it means risking you, again and again. I stepped forward, reckless. Then let me take the risk. Let me help. Silence gathered for a beat too long. Then he caught my face in his hands, mouth finding mine with desperate, anger-laced longing. We kissed until my knees nearly buckled, until hope broke through the sharp fear. When we parted, breathless, he whispered, "Just come back to me." The operation unspooled in a relentless blur. I met Vincent in a bustling downtown restaurant, chosen because surveillance would be difficult for either side. He arrived late, flanked by 2 men who looked more like athletes than bodyguards. He looked older, more desperate, but his eyes were still the eyes I remembered from that freezing warehouse. calculating, amused, confident in his power. He wasted no time. You know why I'm here. You've been found. This is your only chance to stay alive, Lily. Give me the login, and I guarantee you vanish. Don't, and I'll see you in the river before sunrise. I choked out pre-rehearsed panic, fingers shaking over my phone. I want a guarantee. Witness protection, a fresh start. You can have the password. But only after I have proof I'll be safe. He laughed, dismissive. You're in no position to bargain. He leaned in, voice a hiss. Your friend Sokolov won't save you this time. He'll be finished by tomorrow. Those files are his death sentence. My heartbeat hammered, but I kept my voice level. Then you have nothing to lose by letting me walk. I pressed the phone across the table, the first page of a puzzle that couldn't be solved without the rest. At that moment, Raphael's plan kicked in. Nadia's team entered Vincent's data center disguised as city inspectors. The servers, already flagged by Raphael's hacker, yielded under just the right pressure. Meanwhile, Raphael's lawyer received a chain of fresh files, clean, original, and the first traces of faked entries Vincent's people had introduced. Inside the restaurant, my phone pinged. I checked my messages. A code phrase from Nadia. The originals were ours. I forced myself not to sag in relief as Vincent's phone rang, his second-in-command murmuring frantically into his ear. He stood so fast the table rocked. You've just made a dangerous enemy. I held his gaze. Every ounce of my fear channeled into resolve. I've always had enemies. By the time Raphael found me in the alley behind the restaurant, I was shaking from adrenaline and relief. He swept me into a crushing embrace, forehead pressed against mine. You're safe. Not yet, but closer. He nodded, indelible relief in his eyes. We won today, Lily, but the final move is still to come. The streetlights flickered, snow beginning to fall. My hand found his, warm and steady. For once, I permitted myself to believe that fighting was its own kind of salvation, and that strength didn't mean being alone, but surviving together, even through the worst the night could offer. The restaurant meeting had been 2 days ago, but the clock was still ticking. Vincent knew we'd recovered the original files. He knew his window was closing. Desperation made predators reckless, and Vincent Caruso was nothing if not a cornered animal. Raphael's intelligence network picked up chatter immediately. Vincent was moving assets, calling in favors, preparing something big. We just didn't know what. I spent those 2 days with Raphael's forensic accountant, a woman named Sarah who wore reading glasses on a chain and had the personality of a prison warden. Together we combed through every file we'd recovered, comparing them against the altered versions Vincent's team had created. The forgeries were sophisticated, but not perfect. Timestamps didn't match transaction logs. Routing numbers had been changed, but the corresponding bank codes hadn't been updated. Digital fingerprints that should have been scrubbed remained embedded in metadata. This is enough, Sarah said finally, sliding her glasses off and rubbing her eyes. Any competent forensic team will see the alterations. The question is whether we can get this in front of the right people before Vincent buries it under legal motions and bribes. Raphael leaned against the desk, arms crossed. He'd been standing there for 3 hours, silent and watchful. We don't go through channels he can corrupt. We go public. Media, federal investigators in Washington, simultaneous release. He can't bribe everyone at once. Nadia, who'd been monitoring communications from the corner, looked up sharply. That exposes us too. The moment these files hit the news, every law enforcement agency in the country will want to know how we obtained them. Let them wonder. Raphael's voice was flat. Vincent's operation is bigger than mine. His corruption runs deeper. They'll focus on the larger catch. I set down the file I'd been holding. What about the people he's paid off? The cops. The officials. Won't they try to bury this? They'll try, Raphael agreed. But once it's public, once journalists start asking questions, the cost of protecting him becomes too high. Politicians distance themselves from scandal. Bought cops suddenly remember their oaths. Self-preservation trumps loyalty every time. It made a cold kind of sense. I'd seen it before, in smaller ways. The senior partner at my firm who'd approved the laundered transactions, the moment I'd threatened exposure, he'd turned on Vincent without hesitation, trying to save himself. Vincent's empire was built on fear and profit. Remove the profit, increase the fear, and the whole structure would collapse. When do we move? I asked. Raphael checked his watch. Tonight. We've already compiled the package, files, analysis, documentation of the forgeries. It goes to 3 major newspapers, 2 television networks, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division simultaneously at midnight. By morning, it'll be everywhere. Vincent will know it's coming from us. He already knows. Raphael's dark eyes found mine. This is endgame, Lily. After tonight, either he's finished or we are. The plan was solid, but plans had a way of unraveling. At 7 that evening, as we finalized the last details, one of Raphael's guards burst into the study. Sir, we have a situation. Vincent's people just grabbed one of our couriers. He was carrying confirmation codes for the media drops. Raphael went very still. When? 20 minutes ago. We just got word. Nadia swore viciously in Russian. He knows the timeline now. He'll move to intercept before midnight. Or he'll come here, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. If he can't stop the release, he'll try to eliminate the source, us. If we're dead, he can claim the files are fabricated, part of a smear campaign by a rival organization. Raphael's jaw tightened. Double the perimeter guards. Lock down all entrances. Nadia, contact our media sources. See if we can move the timeline up. She was already on her phone, speaking rapid fire. When she hung up, her expression was grim. Best they can do is 10 p.m. That's 2 hours from now. 2 hours. We had to survive 2 hours. Raphael turned to me. You should be in the safe room. Reinforced walls, separate ventilation, stocked for a week-long siege if necessary. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I'm not hiding in a box while you fight this battle. I started this by documenting those files. I'm seeing it through. This isn't about bravery, Lily. It's about survival. Exactly. And I survive by fighting, not cowering. I held his gaze. You taught me that. He wanted to argue. I could see it in the tension around his eyes, the set of his shoulders. But we didn't have time. He nodded once, curt, then stay close to Nadia. Do exactly what she says. The attack came at 8:45. Not a frontal assault this time, but something worse. The power cut first, plunging the mansion into darkness before the backup generators kicked in. Then the phone lines went dead. Cell signals jammed. They'd cut us off from the outside world. They're here, Nadia said, checking her weapon with practiced efficiency. Around us, guards moved into defensive positions. Raphael stood at the window, watching the tree line. 20 vehicles minimum. He brought an army. The first explosion took out the east gate. The second hit the generator building, killing our lights again. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Through the windows, I could see muzzle flashes in the darkness, hear the staccato rhythm of automatic weapons fire. Raphael grabbed my arm. Time to move. We're not staying here. Where are we going? The tunnel. It exits a quarter mile from here, comes up in the old groundskeeper's cottage. We get out, get to one of the backup vehicles, and we run. Nadia led the way, her pistol drawn, sweeping corners with military precision. We descended into the basement, past wine cellars and storage rooms, to a heavy door I'd never noticed before. Raphael produced a key, and the door swung open to reveal a narrow passage barely wide enough for 2 people abreast. We ran. Behind us, the sounds of battle intensified. An explosion rocked the mansion, dust raining from the tunnel ceiling. Nadia stumbled but kept moving. My lungs burned. The tunnel seemed endless, a claustrophobic nightmare of concrete and darkness broken only by emergency lighting every 50 feet. Then Nadia stopped so suddenly I nearly crashed into her. There's someone ahead. Raphael moved forward, putting himself between us and whatever waited. A figure emerged from the shadows, and I recognized him instantly. Dmitri, one of Raphael's logistics coordinators. Relief flooded through me for half a heartbeat before I saw Nadia's weapon come up. Don't move, she ordered. Dmitri raised his hand slowly. I was coming to warn you. Vincent's men are at the cottage. They knew about the tunnel. Raphael's voice was ice. How did they know, Dmitri? The silence stretched too long. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. He told them. He's Vincent's informant. Dimitri's expression cracked. I didn't have a choice. The debts, Raphael. He was going to kill my family. So you sold us out instead. Nadia's finger tightened on the trigger. Wait. Raphael held up a hand. How many men at the cottage? 4. Maybe 5. I told Vincent you'd use the tunnel, but I didn't tell him when. I swear. I tried to. He never finished. Gunfire erupted from behind us. Vincent's men had breached the mansion, were entering the tunnel. And ahead, more footsteps, converging. We were trapped. Raphael made a decision in the space of a breath. Nadia, take Lily through the drainage channel. 3rd junction on the left. It leads to the creek bed. Get to the secondary safe house. What about you? I'll hold them here. Buy you time. That's suicide, I said, grabbing his arm. You'll die. He looked at me, and for a moment the ruthless crime boss disappeared, replaced by just a man. Scared, determined. Then I die making sure you live. Go. Now. Nadia pulled me toward a side passage I hadn't seen. A narrow drainage channel that smelled like mildew and rust. I fought against her grip. Raphael, please. I love you. He said simply. That's why you have to go. The words hit me like a bullet. I'd known somehow, but hearing it made it real, made it devastating. I love you too. Don't you dare die on me. He smiled, sad and beautiful. Then I'll see you soon. Nadia dragged me into the drainage channel as the first shots rang out behind us. I ran through the narrow space, water soaking my shoes, tears streaming down my face. Above us, muffled by concrete and earth, the battle raged. We emerged into freezing night air near the creek, scrambling up the embankment. Nadia produced a phone from a waterproof case, made a call in clipped Russian. Vehicles coming. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Behind us, the mansion burned, orange light painting the sky. I couldn't tell if Raphael was alive or dead. Couldn't feel anything past the screaming terror that I'd just lost him forever. Nadia gripped my shoulder. He survived worse. If anyone can make it out, it's him. I wanted to believe her. Needed to believe her. But all I could hear was gunfire, and all I could see was fire. And the man I loved was somewhere in that hell, fighting alone. The vehicle arrived. We climbed in, and as we sped away into the darkness, I made a promise. If Raphael survived this, I would never run from a fight again. I would never hide while people I loved faced danger alone. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, or not at all. The secondary safe house was a concrete bunker, disguised as a storage facility on the outskirts of Gary, Indiana. Industrial wasteland surrounded it. Rusted factories and abandoned lots where nothing moved except wind-blown trash. Nadia kept me there for 3 days with no word from Raphael. 3 days of pacing the small space. Checking my phone for messages that never came. Watching news reports that showed the mansion as a smoking ruin. The media firestorm happened exactly as planned. At 10 p.m. that night, while Raphael fought for his life, the files went public. Every major network led with the story. Vincent Caruso's empire, exposed in excruciating detail. Money laundering, contract killing, political corruption reaching into City Hall, the State House, even federal agencies. The evidence was irrefutable. By morning, FBI raids hit a dozen locations simultaneously. Vincent's lieutenants were arrested, his bank accounts frozen. His carefully constructed world collapsed like a house of cards. But I couldn't celebrate, because Raphael was missing. Nadia's contacts reported that 6 of his guards had survived the attack, escaping through various routes. Raphael wasn't among them. No body had been found in the rubble, but that meant nothing. Vincent could have taken him, could have executed him somewhere quiet, and dumped the remains where they'd never be discovered. I existed in a state of suspended horror, unable to eat, unable to sleep for more than an hour at a time. Nadia tried to maintain her usual ice-cold demeanor, but even she showed cracks. She'd known Raphael since they were teenagers in Moscow. He'd saved her life twice, given her purpose when she had nothing. Losing him would break something fundamental in her. On the 4th day, the door opened without warning. I spun, heart in my throat, expecting Vincent's assassins. Instead, Raphael limped through the entrance, supported by one of his guards. His face was bruised, left arm in a makeshift sling, clothes torn and blood-stained. But he was alive. I crossed the room in 3 strides, threw my arms around him, buried my face in his shoulder. He grunted in pain, but held me tight with his good arm. "Easy," he murmured. "Ribs are cracked. You're alive." It was all I could manage. Relief and fury and love tangled together until I couldn't separate them. "You're alive, you bastard. I thought you were dead." "Almost was." He eased into a chair Nadia pulled out, wincing with every movement. Held them in the tunnel long as I could. Dmitri grew a spine at the last second, helped me escape through a maintenance shaft I'd forgotten existed. He didn't make it. Took 3 bullets meant for me. Nadia brought medical supplies. Started cutting away his shirt to assess the damage. I saw his torso was mottled with bruises, a nasty gash along his ribs poorly bandaged. "You need a hospital," I said. "I need whiskey and a better doctor than the one we've got." Raphael caught my hand, held it despite Nadia's ministrations. I saw the news. It worked. Vincent's finished. "Arrested this morning," Nadia confirmed, threading a needle with practiced efficiency, along with 43 associates, 12 police officers, and 6 elected officials. His lawyer's already trying to cut a deal, which means he's going to talk. Won't matter. Raphael hissed as Nadia started stitching. With the evidence we provided, the feds have enough to put him away for 3 lifetimes. He's done. I sank into the chair beside him, exhaustion hitting me like a wave now that the adrenaline was fading. "What about us?" "The FBI will want to know where those files came from. They'll investigate, connect dots back to you. Let them investigate." Raphael's voice was rough with pain, but certain. "I've already started moving operations. Legitimate businesses, clean investments. The criminal enterprises, I'm shutting them down, selling off to neutral parties, paying reparations where I can. It'll take years, but I'm done with that life. Vincent's arrest proved something. The old ways don't work anymore. Too much exposure, too much risk. Time to evolve or die." Nadia paused mid-stitch. "You're serious?" "I'm alive because Lily taught me there's more than survival. There's actually living." He met my eyes. "I'm tired of just surviving. Tired of looking over my shoulder, counting enemies, waiting for the next attack. I want something different, something real. And you think you can just walk away?" Nadia's skepticism was evident. "The families won't allow it. You know too much. They'll accept it if I'm smart. Offer them my territory, my contacts, in exchange for safe passage. Make it more profitable for them to let me go than to come after me." Raphael gestured to the room around us. "This isn't a life. It's existence in the margins, always waiting for death. I want more." Nadia finished stitching, bandaged the wound with precise movements. "Then you'll have it. But recovery first. You look like hell." She was right. Raphael could barely stay upright. We moved him to the small bedroom, got him horizontal on the narrow cot. I sat beside him as Nadia retreated to give us privacy. His hand found mine in the dim light. "I meant what I said in that tunnel," he told me quietly. "I love you. I don't say that lightly. In my world, love is a weakness. But you made me realize it's also the only thing worth having. Tears I'd been holding back for days finally broke free. I love you too. When I thought you were dead, nothing else mattered. Not safety, not justice, not anything. Just you. Then stay. Help me build something new. Not criminal, not hiding. Just a life. Together." I laughed through the tears. "That's the best offer I've had in months." He pulled me down, kissed me gently despite split lips and exhaustion. It was a promise, a beginning, a bridge between who we'd been and who we could become. 6 months later, I stood in a corporate office 40 floors above downtown Chicago, reviewing acquisition contracts for a legitimate tech startup. Raphael's investment firm had purchased it as part of his transition out of organized crime. The paperwork was clean. The money was legal. The business actually produced something valuable instead of destroying lives. Nadia walked in, dressed in a sharp business suit that looked bizarre on someone I'd only ever seen in tactical gear. She'd taken to corporate life with the same intensity she'd brought to being Raphael's enforcer. "The Chicago Tribune wants an interview about our urban renewal projects. You or Raphael?" "Raphael." He's better with reporters. I signed the last contract, set it aside. Any word from the FBI? They closed the investigation into the source of the Caruso files last month. Officially unsolved. Unofficially, they don't care. Vincent's in prison. His network dismantled. They got what they wanted. Justice had been served, in its messy, imperfect way. Vincent would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The corrupt officials had been exposed. The laundering operation was shut down. It wasn't perfect. Some bad actors escaped. Some damage couldn't be undone. But it was something. A step toward better. Raphael entered, moving easily now that his injuries had healed. He wore a charcoal suit, hair neatly trimmed, looking every inch the legitimate businessman he was becoming. But I still saw the dangerous man beneath. That part of him would never fully disappear. Ready? For what? Special occasion. Come on. He drove us out of the city as evening fell, snow beginning to drift from heavy clouds. I recognized the route. Industrial district. The same one where he'd found me crying in an alley 6 months ago. My heart clenched. Raphael, why are we here? He parked near the alley, helped me out. The area looked different now. Some of the warehouses being renovated, streetlights repaired, signs of investment and renewal. He led me to the exact spot where I'd collapsed that night, held my hands. I found you here, broken and alone, and something in me changed forever. His voice was steady despite the cold. I claimed you that night without asking, kept you without permission. But I want to do this right. I want to ask properly. He knelt in the snow, pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring. Simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant and understated. Lily Brennan, will you marry me? Not as my possession, not as someone I protected. As my equal, my partner, my choice. Will you help me build something worth having out of the ruins we started with? I dropped to my knees in front of him, snow soaking through my pants, cold biting at exposed skin. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, and I pulled him into a kiss while snow fell around us, transforming that place of desperation into something new. A place of hope, of second chances, of love born from darkness but reaching toward light. 3 months later, I stood beside Raphael in a different office, this one at the headquarters of Sokolov Investments, reviewing proposals for affordable housing developments in underserved neighborhoods. Using his resources and my analytical skills, we were building something that actually helped people. It felt surreal sometimes, like living in someone else's life, but it was mine. Ours. Raphael came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, rested his chin on my shoulder. Sarah sent the quarterly reports. We're up 20%. Legal operations are profitable. Who knew doing the right thing could actually work? I leaned back into him. Turns out redemption has decent returns. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You taught me that. You taught me a lot of things. Like how strength isn't about being alone. It's about surviving together through the worst, and still choosing each other on the other side. Through the window, Chicago spread before us. Complicated, dangerous, beautiful, full of possibility. Somewhere in that city, people were making mistakes, facing crises, fighting to survive. The world was still broken. But in this moment, standing with the man I loved, building something meaningful from ashes and second chances, I believed we could make our corner of it just a little bit better. Raphael turned me to face him, his dark eyes holding that same intensity that had terrified me 6 months ago, but now felt like home. I saw you crying in the snow, he said softly, echoing the words that had changed everything. And I knew you were mine. I smiled, reaching up to touch his face. I was never yours. But I chose to be. That's better. He kissed me, gentle and sure. Outside, snow was falling again, covering old scars with fresh white. Inside, we held each other close, two broken people who'd found a way to be whole together. Not perfect, not without shadows, but real, and fighting for something that mattered. And that was everything.